Hello everyone, this is Vaishali Chakravarti on behalf of Lexplosion, and I will be taking this session on the employer obligation under three crucial anti-discriminatory enactments which have come into the picture from 2016 till 2020. And these enactments are Right of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016, the HIV and AIDS Prevention and Control Act 2017, and the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act 2019. So let me tell you that the transgender rules have also now been notified, and we will be covering the employer obligations under the rules as well. So to give a brief background for the ones who have joined the session earlier on a webinar where we had conducted the compliance obligations under these enactments, the critical ones though, this happened in February 2020. So you can say this is a follow-up and a fallout of those critical obligations where we are listing out the implementation procedures. I will move on to the agenda of today's session. So the agenda of today's session is the key obligation of the employers for implementing the provisions of these three enactments. So we have a guest in today's session, Sunita Pareek, and she's the Assistant General Counsel of Subex Limited. And we'll have a quick chat towards the end of the session where she's going to give us an insight on how she has taken the steps to, bring about processes and changes to bring her organization up to speed with implementing these laws. And more than how she is doing this for her organization, I think it's important to understand from her as well the challenges that she's faced and how the businesses will be able to cope up to implement this law. While we have shared, a list of updates around the developments of these enactments from the stage on which it was in the bill stage, from the stage where it went to the parliament, to both the houses of the parliament, and how it became a law. And all of these developments, I think we've reported to you through various updates. And the compliances for the ones who are using ComRisk and present in our session today will be able to relate to the compliances that are under this act, and I'm sure are following them as well. Just for the ones who have joined new to Lexplosion and is attending this session, I'm sure you would want to know more, and we are there to assist you. So please do reach out to us post this webinar. We have our LinkedIn handles as well, so you can reach out to me, and we will be able to assist you with the compliances under this law and many other laws maybe which you're grappling with to comply with. Moving on to the primary objective of the three enactments. The main objective is clear on my screen, that is non-discrimination. That's the intent, and that's the benefit these laws are giving to all the employees who are getting covered under this enactments. So it is non-discrimination and the protection of human rights. While I would like to point out here that under the HIV and AIDS Act, they are covering the requirement of prevention and control. Why they are covering it is, as per the preamble, what we are given to understand is that there can be a situation where an HIV positive employee is working with an employee who is not HIV positive, right? So there can be a situation where the employer has a duty of care or has to take that reasonable effort to ensure that the spread is controlled, but at the same time, the discrimination is not happening towards that positive person. Now, with this, just a minute or so I'll take to let you know that this enactment comes from the Constitution of India. So we have Article 15, we have Article 41, Article 42, which gives the right, which enshrines the right, which prohibits discrimination, which allows a person to freely access, if you are disabled, a public place or a workplace, or gives the right to have a safe and a secure work environment. I think that is from where this law is coming, leaving apart the UN conventions, leaving apart the NALSA judgment through which third gender came into the picture. Leave those apart, the law is developing, and we are seeing some reminiscence of this in the labor code, where under the occupational safety code we see that they have covered transgender employees as well, but still the uniformity is yet to be attained, and hence these three laws have been enacted. Moving towards an inclusive workplace, a very critical and a very important aspect in today's business because in today's business, we suffer from specific biases, right? I mean, the society is, then why not the businesses? I mean, there are a lot of things that the employers need to keep in mind before engaging someone or ensuring that the person is efficient or skilled enough to work in their organization, right? So that bias keeps coming, and it keeps revolving in these organizations. But on the face of it, this legislation might look not so employer friendly, but it is, and it is a boon for your workplace. It is going to allow you to choose from a variety of resources, not discriminating basis their gender, or discriminating basis the health of that resource, but identifying a specific resource, even if the person is disabled or is a transgender. The fact that he has the skill to do the work that you're going to hire him or her for, or a transgender for, is important here. So creating an inclusive workplace is very important. Now, I'm sure there are a lot of HR team persons who might have joined the session because they have a huge role to play to change all the processes. I mean, we have to be very sensitive towards our HR policies. While we cannot be stringent towards our existing employees who might have their insecurities towards working with these people covered under the enactment, but at the same time, we also have to be sensitive towards the people under these enactments, like a disabled person or a transgender person or a person with HIV, to be able to work safely in a workplace. And this doesn't stop at the HR team. This covers interdepartmental. So the role needs to be played in a coordinated manner across all departments. So it is through an administrative team, through an operations team, through your sales or your marketing team. I mean, it can be someone working in each of these teams, right? And everyone needs to be sensitized. As sensitization is a lot broader topic, which we will be covering in the key obligation segment in my next slide. Now we'll discuss the key obligations of employers under these enactments. And what we have done is we have created some implementation parameters as per the law, and we will be discussing them across these laws. We'll start with the policy requirement. Now, all the three enactments require you to have a policy in place. As you can see, there is a requirement to have an equal opportunity policy under the Disabilities Act, an equal opportunity policy again under the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act, and the HIV/AIDS policy under the HIV and AIDS Prevention and Control Act. Now, what is critical is what the policy needs to contain. So here, with respect to the Disabilities Act, it is important that you identify suitable jobs for persons with disability, have an unbiased mechanism for the selection process, and for various posts that you're having, you should have an unbiased process, and also consider them for pre-promotion training. These are some of the prerequisites of the equal opportunity policy that you need to have in place for the disabled person. Again, under the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Equal Opportunity Policy, you need to ensure that the transgender persons are not discriminated against with respect to employment and have a safe working environment. Moving on to the HIV/AIDS policy. Now, this is backed up with the World of Work policy issued by the National AIDS Control Organization, which sets down guidelines that you need to follow under the HIV/AIDS policy, where you need to ensure that you are not isolating an HIV positive person in the workplace, you are not undertaking any pre-recruitment tests of HIV positive person, and also the fact that you are not specifically discriminating an HIV positive person from occupation or employment in your organization. Now, the World of Work also talks about having a committee at all levels to ensure that the policy is implemented properly in your organization to ensure non-discrimination. Now, moving on to the workplace sensitization. In this segment, again, it is a fallout of the policies that you need to have in place. Sensitization just doesn't happen with explaining the policy to your employees, but it comes from the manner in which you're training them, making them aware through different sessions. So the sensitization starts from the employer at each organization till the end to the last drop of the employee, which can be even a private security guard in your organization. This covers requirements of undertaking training sessions. While the HIV Act says that you need to have annual training sessions, the other acts are not quite open about having specific training sessions. But that is the manner in which I think you can bring about sensitization. Just a quick thing to note for all the participants here is we do have a product called ComCert through which we provide training platforms to most of our clients, and I think that is a place which you can use to start the training sessions. That can be your first step to a workplace sensitization under different acts. I mean, leave apart disabilities, HIV and transgender, you can even cover those for POSH. Now, infrastructure facility under these enactment, as the term suggests, it's very crucial for disabled people because they need a barrier-free accessibility in your workplace. They need to have handbars, rails, ramps, so that they're able to move around freely and they're able to discharge their duties properly. Now, even if you're providing buses or transportation facility, ensure that the transport facility is as per the bus code or as per the different guidelines issued by the Ministry of Road and Transport. Even if a disabled person is there who is blind, let's say in your organization, that person needs to have access to the information communication system as per OCR or as per EPUB as issued by the Public Grievance Department in the Administrative Reforms Ministry. Now, for transgender, it is crucial to have unisex toilet. It is crucial to ensure their safety. So these are some of the amenities. It's very crucial. You need to ensure that the hygiene is maintained for the transgender persons. That is when they will feel home at work and they will feel discrimination free and will be able to discharge their duties seamlessly in your organization. Now, the grievance redressal mechanism, again, this is very critical. But the right of persons with disability is silent on this. However, there's a requirement to engage a complaints officer and additional complaints officer under the HIV and AIDS Act. And also the Transgender Protection Act talks about having a complaints officer, but does not specify any qualification of such officers. But the HIV Act specifically states that you need to have a complaints officer with a senior rank, and you need to ensure that the complaints officer is sensitized before they are handling such complaints, which is, I think, very critical with respect to sensitization. Again, they are handling these people directly. They're handling their grievances directly. Now, data protection and confidentiality runs common in these two enactments of HIV and transgender, while the transgender law is developing. So I'm sure this enactment is going to come up with more data protection guidelines. It just now states that the equal opportunity policy should cover requirements of confidentiality of gender of a transgender person. However, the HIV and AIDS Control Act, Prevention and Control Act, is covering the draft data management guidelines 2020, through which specific protection requirements, like if you have an external person seeing your HIV positive employees' data, they will have to be authorized, and your computers which are storing this data, they will have to be, properly, they will have anti-malware or firewall settings. Also, the data that you're storing in your servers will have to be authorized, and authorized staff will be able to access this data. So covering the key obligations, we will now move on to our guest, Sunita. Having Sunita as our client and having a rich experience of 17 years in finance management, marketing, and working in Subex for 7 years, we would like to understand from her and ask a few questions on the challenges that she's facing and how she can implement this law. Thank you, Sunita, for joining today's session. It's a pleasure to host you. And as you know, we will be asking you a few questions to understand the implementation aspects and take your insights on how you're implementing these enactments in your organization. We'll quickly begin with the questions, Rita. So the first one that I want to ask you is, as you know that the equal opportunity policy runs common under two enactments, that is the Disabilities Act and the Transgender Protection Act. So like there are requirements under each of these acts. The requirements are maybe separate that you need to incorporate in those policies. these. So did you foresee any challenge for implementing them?
Vaishali, first of all, thank you for the introduction and to have me here to speak about these very important topics which needs to be spoken about. Coming to your question about the challenges while implementing these policies under these enactments, uh, from Subex point of view, I wouldn't say that we saw many challenges because we were, uh, even before the enactment was in place, we were kind of infrastructure ready. When I say infrastructure ready, we had that, we didn't have the space constraints, etc. And a number of things were already met which are required as per the law, in particular rights of disabled persons act.
Yeah, like
So
having a handrail or having wheelchair facilities in your premises.
yes,
So it has to be barrier-free accessibility, right, for your premises. Absolutely.
yes, so that is something which we were already ready, and that's
Yeah.
something which I think takes most of the efforts or most of the investment also.
Yeah,
Having
definitely.
said that, certain organization might have, especially those who have space constraint, who have
Hmm.
small office premises
Yeah.
or may have rented accommodation, they might have
Absolutely.
to, yeah,
The shared facility is one major concern under these enactments because there's no clarity on the obligation of the owner or the occupier in that case. I mean, that
exactly,
might cause a lot of confusion because if
exactly,
plug and play
yeah,
operations, it's really difficult to
yeah.
implement those.
So my understanding about a certain requirement under the law may be different from the co-sharer or the builder.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
builder do not want to do certain things, but I believe that this is a compliance requirement. So
Yeah,
those are certain challenges which I think certain organization will see.
yeah,
Having said that, it is time for us to be more inclusive, and
absolutely.
this is just a one-time effort and a one-time investment, and as
Yeah.
a responsible society we are supposed to do it and we should be doing it. uh, so
Absolutely, absolutely. So, keeping the equal opportunity policy tone set, we have a similar question where under that policy, we under the Disabilities Act, as we were discussing, the harmonized guidelines for having a built-up space that is barrier-free needs to be in place as per the law by June 2022. So there is a time gap that the businesses are getting to implement this. So what is your take on this? So how do you suggest that corporates should prepare for this? How are you planning to prepare for this, or have your suggestions on this?
how are we planning to prepare for this? Yeah, so the harmonized guidelines, as I said, we are almost there already. So we do have the policies in place, we have
Yeah,
procedures in place, we do have accessible workspaces, we have accessible toilets, we have designated parkings, we have barrier free entry and exit points for the specially abled people, and we have the lift enabled for vision impaired people. And we also, apart from that, we also believe that we need to, because they are our employees and they are going to work for Subex, so we need to technologically and in other ways enable them. uh,
absolutely.
yeah, so we have that vision of having certain kind of screens and certain kind of technology in place for the people with maybe vision impairment, etc. So
Yeah,
these are the most important things which we are already there. And as we go, there will be teething issues like any legislation, any new legislation or any new
yeah,
procedure which comes in place. There may be
absolutely.
teething issues, and most important is that there has to be an intent which is there.
Hmm.
And if there is an intent, we will just come across the challenges, and
Yeah. I mean,
as we go,
face the
yeah,
challenge and hurdle and go about
yeah,
with it. I mean, that's the
yeah.
law of the land. We cannot, stop it. So, in the interest of time, Sunita, I'll quickly want to ask you a question on the aspect of sensitizing. So, sensitizing is very important under all of these enactments. So,
Mm.
what is your take on, sensitizing the employees with respect to these laws?
Yes. This is also compliance requirement. Otherwise, also sensitizing the employees is definitely important, because we are still living in 2020. We are still living in a society that we are not as inclusive. In particular, when it comes to the requirement under Transgender Protection Act. So that is particularly something which, yes, sensitization is also required under HIV and AIDS Prevention and Control Act, because people needs to know about sensitivity of the health related information.
Yeah.
The challenge which I see, or the most important consideration in these enactments, is that these people do have, apart from not being discriminated, these people do have a right of privacy and an extra
Yeah,
right of
absolutely.
privacy than a person of
Absolutely.
binary
I agree.
gender, or somebody else. So that is something which I believe any organization should always keep in mind. And the person who ever gets hold of this information, maybe a gender identity or health related information, they should be extra sensitized about maintaining confidentiality and protecting that information. So that's utmost
Yeah,
important.
and also to add, and also to add to what you're saying, Sunita, I think is the manner in which you're taking up the trainings, the corporates that are taking up the training, that has to be sensitive enough, because the existing employees might also feel insecure about working with someone who might be HIV positive. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
just a live situation that can happen. So that has to be very
Yeah.
sensitive, and that
Right.
has to be taken
Yes, we
care of as
cannot
well.
live in
So
denial.
while we are
Yeah. Yeah. This is
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It has to be understood. That aspect needs
yes.
to be understood.
Yeah.
So, moving on to my next question is the Act on the Transgender Act. It does not specifically require establishment to
Yeah.
hire transgenders, right? So it's not saying that you need to hire, but yeah, you cannot discriminate. So, do you think that it should have this requirement included specifically or explicitly in the law? That you need to hire
Vaishali, I'm very
transgenders?
glad that you asked this question. See, generally speaking, I am an advocate of hiring solely basis of capabilities and skills. But this is a different case. And we cannot say that the transgenders get as many opportunities as a person of a binary gender get. That is not the case.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
Yeah, it is still getting
right,
recognized,
the
the
third
third
gender
gender.
or the X gender, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, whatever, the X gender is still getting recognized, and many of us do not really understand the technicalities of it. We do not understand because we have never been as a society very inclusive, not only at workplace, at educational
Yeah,
places, etc. We have not been one of the reasons, and because we were not inclusive, it was not something which came across openly. Nobody came across openly. So I believe that inclusiveness or that extra push or a helping hand is definitely required at all levels, not only hiring, at
yeah,
all levels,
at
right
all
from
levels.
education or anything at all. So
Yeah,
only non-discrimination is not going to help here. There has to be an affirmative action here,
yeah,
and we have to
exactly.
give some extra push to bring them at par. And that's where we can talk about equality, because equality is for equals, so we have to bring them to equal
Yes.
first. Yeah.
Yeah, and no special treatment. I mean, they have to be at par with the existing employees that are already working in the
Yes.
establishment.
Yes.
No, I mean,
And
that is what the idea should be behind this enactment. And I wanted to quickly
absolutely.
point out one thing that, like, under the insurance sector, what we were seeing, observing is IRDA has issued a circular that they are specifically including in their underwriting policies of health insurance that they will have to add people having HIV or the ones who are disabled or having mental illness to be included in their policies. So that is something very important, and they specifically mentioned in that circular with respect to insurance companies, you will have to comply with the HIV Prevention and Control Act and the
Yeah.
Transgender Protection Act. So the legislators as well as the departments who are issuing these notifications, I think, are gearing up and issuing a lot of things or clarifications under this. And transgender, I believe, is a developing law because 2020
It's a
October the
development.
rules came in. So I'm sure more clarity is going to come as the time
Yes, sure.
approaches.
Sure.
and as the labor code
I
comes.
totally agree. In my opinion as well, there is a lot of progression required in that that area. A lot of progression is required, and I believe that a lot of progression is also required because, as I just said, that this is one area where not everyone knows the nitty-gritties and technicalities of it. You have to have certain knowledge, maybe medical knowledge, or you have to be working with transgenders so much to understand certain things. So it needs to be progressed a lot, but it's a very good start, I must say. Yeah,
that's
it's
great.
A very welcome step.
Welcome step. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. My last question, which I want to keep it as brief as possible, is now we are all working from home. So I'm sure the training sessions, the awareness programs are all been happening online. So under these enactments, some are mandatory. Under the HIV Act, like it's mandatory to have these sessions. So are you envisaging any issues or challenges while you're doing it? I mean, in the attendance, I mean, there can be situations where people would say that I am busy and I would not want to join the session. So are you envisaging any issues or challenges on this?
So Baishali, if you had asked me this question, our organization started working from home in the month of March. We tried to go back to office, which couldn't happen. Obviously, people aren't comfortable. Management wants to put the health of people at top priority, obviously. So if you had asked me this question in March, my answer might have been different because we were not that used to being a technology company. We always had certain work from home, a few days in a month or whenever required, etc. But now for last 8-9 months, we are constantly working from home. My answer has totally changed, and I have started to see the benefits of having these workshops and trainings online. I am busy, I couldn't attend, or I got some important mail. I do not have to get up from the training and go out and miss it. It is always getting recorded, and I can hear it at any time. And this is the best use of technology, I must say. We being a technology company, we are doing everything. We are onboarding new employees online. We are even delivering licenses online. Like, we are implementing licenses remotely from India to various countries, various customers. So I think this is the best use of technology right now, and there are a lot of good things about this working from home and having training and workshop online. One is that the recording thing. And it's a lot less work for the organizer of the trainings. I must
the
say,
administration work stops. I mean, the administration aspect of the work stops, and you be having a global presence. I mean, anyway, the meetings with the global teams have always been through online. So even those sessions you must be conducting online as well. So
we had a town hall physically in the office. We have a large auditorium. We used to have it there, and now because of this work from home and because of this COVID, we realized that we can have a town hall for all our employees, global employees, in one go.
Great.
So this is the time when we are getting together. Technology has enabled this. So I would say there is absolutely no challenge at all in organizing these workshops. Even if there are certain hiccups, they can always be technological.
Those I think can be, can be resolved.
Only thing which is important is intention to have it.
Absolutely.
The willingness to have it.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you, Sunita. And so with this, I would close the questions that I have with you. So with respect to the participants, if they have any questions, they can keep posting them in the chat box, and we will try and respond to them either directly on the chat or over email. Thank you so much, Sunita, for being a part of this session. And this has been really insightful to understand from you how, I mean, from the corporate perspective, how things are working and how we can plan for the next step, 2022 or 2021, whichever the year is. I think we need to have better workplaces sooner or later. Thank you, Sunita, for joining.
Thank you, Baishali. Thank you, Lexplosion team, to have me here. Thank you.